Hello y'all, this is Kaiserredux, a mod for Hearthstone 4 that acts as an unofficial standalone expansion for Kaiserreich. It focuses on fun and interesting scenarios over realism and grounded lore. Kaiserreich itself is set in a world where the Central Powers won World War I. As for what country we are going to be playing as, that would be the Republic of Haiti. We begin with two national spirits, and those are education deficit and influence of the Guard. The ideology of the starting ruling party in Haiti is authoritarian democracy, and it is led by Louis Borno, who of course leads the country. Our initial army starts off with two divisions, and we might as well take a look at the army commanders. Let's just say there is a lot of generals, but we do have a single field marshal. Let's take a look at our military technology. We have basic weapons and we have basic artillery. To be honest, that's about it. Let's begin the focus tree by starting and completing status of the legislature, reform the council, dismiss foreigners, a mixed council, and then after that, reel in the Guard, and finally, legalize parties. The Pearl of the Caribbean. Here is some background history on Haiti. Since 1915, the Americans have occupied the country. The current president was instated by the occupiers in 1922, and since then him and his backers haven't done much for the country. To add to this, an American commander controls the only standing military force in the nation. With the Great Depression in full swing back in the USA, the bulk of the occupationary forces have been sent back home. Haiti is teetering on the edge of collapse, and many are hoping to win out in the soon-to-come scramble for power. Status of the legislature. We can either choose to empower it or dissolve the chamber altogether. Let's go with the former. You may be wondering, what are our neighbors up to? Well, the Dominican Republic is doing stuff with the Americans, Cuba exists, and the West Indies Federation is a proud member of the Entente faction. News from around the world. China is fighting itself, and in Europe, Romania has declared war on Hungary. Haiti is moving towards a restored democracy, and quite a few political forces are trying to make their way into the council by becoming part of it. We're going to tell them all no and just say we're doing fine on our own, thank you. Real in the Guard Daiichi. The Guard was established as the first modern military force within the country. They also lobby for their typically pro-American interests, and we must address that. We must reach out to one of the commander's confidants. In that regard, we will get into contact with U.S. Marine Gerald Thomas. Across the Atlantic Ocean, far away from us, the Austrian Empire has got into a conflict with the Italian Federation, who just so happens to control the northern part of the Italian peninsula. With chaos in the United States, the head of the Guard returns home to help guard against rioters and prepare for a possible insurrection. With his exit, we must wait for the announcement of his successor. Political parties have been legalized. For years, they were officially banned in Haitian politics, but that has now changed. The country inches slowly to democracy, or does it? A lapdog versus an emperor. A coup has been launched against a man who takes orders from Washington, D.C., this being Gerald Thomas. This desperate attempt to overthrow him is led by U.S. Marine Fallston the First, an unusual champion of the people who is getting support from the natives and a few Guard loyalists. We will make sure he succeeds in his mission. As a result of the success of the ousting of the old regime, Fallston the First is the new country leader of Haiti. He comes with his own special trait, and he is of the paternal autocrat ideology. Historically, Fallston was either born in Germany or the USA, but what matters is that he was a U.S. Marine who took part in the real-life occupation of Haiti in 1915. During his service, he rescued a woman who turned out to be the Queen of La Gonâve Island. She told the population there how kind he was, and coincidentally, he also had the same first name as the previous emperor of Haiti, Fallston the First. Due to this, he was proclaimed the King of La Gonâve in a Voodoo ritual and would be formally called Fallston II. He reigned for 3 years and was known for the dispensing of ready but gentle justice. Thanks to the change in the government, we have access to a whole nother part of the focus tree. With that said, let's complete King of La Gonâve, the graceful officer, the Voodoo emperor, and the modern farmer. Back in Europe, Poland falls to nationalism, meaning they have a national populace now in charge of the country, and speaking of which, another place with a national populace leading it, the Italian Federation, is still fighting the Austrian Empire. The Voodoo Emperor focus is done, and because of that, I guess, the country leader of Haiti gets his portrait changed to look more regal looking. More world news. Siam, aka Thailand, has a civil war, and in Eastern Europe, the United Baltic Duchy collapses. In the focus tree, let's do Train the Men, Legacy of Fallston the First for the people, and fight corruption. Over in that place you could call the old world, perhaps, Austria sees a regime change and a civil war. Oh, and by the way, they're still fighting the Italian Federation. Slovenia gets in on the action by appearing and declaring war on the Österreich. Fallston aka Fallston the First, was the Emperor of Haiti and a renowned veteran of the Haitian Revolution and a fair ruler to his people. He embraced Voodoo, created secret police, and was brutal against his opponents. Fallston II seeks to emulate his greatness, but without the tyrannical tendencies that tarnished his predecessor's reputation forevermore. In Turkey, Mustafa Kemal seizes power, and in Brazil to the south, a large tent alliance of center-left and leftist parties won the general elections. Up in the USA, Alf Landon was made president. We will see in the near future if he will be able to fix the assortment of big problems that country is facing at the moment. For the people, the Emperor of Haiti did not ascend to the throne for personal gain. He wishes for every decree, every policy, every decision of the state to be made to the benefit of the country's citizens. He seeks to help all regardless of status, and to help with that, he has announced a new series of reforms that will grant support, aid, and other modern amenities to help all true sons and daughters of the nation. One thing I did not notice until now is that Queen Timamen, the Queen of La Gonâve that Fallston work has saved in real life, is our head of government. More focuses, let's start and complete to build Hunfors, which are apparently voodoo temples, and after that we will follow native customs. Standoff in America. If it's not entirely obvious, the President of the United States has not done a very good job at keeping it united. In Haiti, something we will call rooster fighting is on the rise. It is, quote, the closest thing Haiti has to a national sport. With the departure of the Americans, its popularity has only grown. On top of this, there is to be a grand national tournament in the capital where the winner shall be crowned as the Big Rooster. A second American Civil War has begun, and out goes the war declarations. We will keep a close eye on the country that once heavily influenced the national politics of the nation we are playing as. No longer bound to shackles, the Haitians are allowed to proudly display their traditions, and in the process of doing so have accelerated their growth. Along with this, traditional religions such as Voodoo are flourishing. The occupying force participant turned emperor is going to go all in on these native ideas. Our country name has become the Third Empire of Haiti. The two that came before it were in the 19th century. On another note, Fallston II's portrait has reached its final, fanciest form. Because we can, we're going to finish up our political focus tree by completing Civil War intervention and the White Emperor of Haiti. As battles rage in the former USA, the perfect opportunity has come for us to aid the African Americans there. We will do that by sending the Black Belt Republic, if it exists, manpower. In the you-know-what-it's-called tree, let's begin education reform, reorganize rural schools, open universities, integrate Jesuits, and expand lycées. There is a crisis at the Dominican border. The ruling regime of our neighbor has sent troops to the border zone to enforce their idea of peace. Not helping the matter is the implementing of harsh policies against Haitian laborers at a border town. We cannot let this stand, and so we shall prepare for war. Inspecting the army, we can see that our main weakness is not going to be having enough equipment, but it will be in fact a lack of manpower. Canada chooses to support the Pacific States of America in the second ACW. This could be a sign of a potential Canadian intervention in the future. We have just unlocked the foreign policy branch of the focus tree. In it, we will do preemptive strike and fate of the Dominican Republic when we have the chance. News from the border. Atrocities have been committed against a group of Haitian workers residing in a seaside town, and thus the Haitian-Dominican conflict begins. With that started and manpower still being an issue, we're going to up our conscription law up to extensive conscription. The Black Revolt has emerged in the American South and are fighting the constitutional American Republic. Let's wish them good luck. The Emperor's forces are going to go on an all-out assault against their Dominican counterparts. I'm not so sure if that will work out in our favor, though. New strategy. We regrouped and let the enemy advance slightly. We are hoping that they overextend to the point that we can cut them off from their supply. Just across the pond, Mexico joins the Third International faction. Other members of it include Britain and France. Our plan is going to work maybe once the Dominican unit in Cap Haitian leaves it. We're going to come in and trap them on the coast, then take them out of the picture entirely. Everything is going so well right now, we just got to hold out until our divisions can annihilate this enemy brigade. That's 33% of the opposing army gone. To beat the rest of their troops, we're going to use the same trick we just used before. We're going to pin down our opponent with 2 divisions, while at the same time our other units are going to move in and take all the important Dominican cities. Once we capture Santiago de los Caballeros, this will be all over. That is done, so let's complete the fate of the Dominican Republic, the New World, and maybe the Old World as well. We're going to work toward integrating the DR, meaning it will just become another part of the Third Empire of Haiti. Back in Europe, Illyria attacks Austria, whose leader's portrait and the overall terrible situation they're in makes me think of the phrase, "If you only knew how bad things really are." To the north, the Black Revolt, which has become the United Peoples of Africa, has been pushed into Florida by the Constitutional American Republic. We're doing military focuses for the time being, and some we have already done or are planning to start are the Future of the Guard, Militarized Society, All for One, Ceaseless Duty, Shades of Blue, Natives to the Soil, Fanatic NCOs, and last but not least, militarized youth organizations. Men from all walks of life are to serve in our armed forces. All true Haitians shall stand up for the one and only glorious Haiti. Natives to the soil, the people of the country, are experts of Hispaniola's lands and its many wooded areas. This has greatly benefited the agricultural and commerce sectors. Now their knowledge shall be put to good use for the military. In the not-so-United States, the situation has developed to the point that given enough time, the American Union state may win out in the Civil War. Let's check up on Austria one final time. They are giving the Kaiser the boot, and they are at war with the Czechs, Galicia, Lodomeria, Hungary, Romania, Serbia, Greece, another Austria, and as always, the Italian Federation. For our foreign policy, we will complete the focuses looking outwards, join the Reichspakt, a true empire, and punish France. After all that is done, we will just do stuff related to the economy. Emperor Fallston, who considers himself a good Catholic at heart, even though he uses voodoo aesthetics and rituals in his rule, has been excommunicated by the Pope. He retaliates to this by doing nothing. We have aligned ourselves with the German Empire, and because of that, Haiti will join the Middle Europa faction. That's somewhat surprising. The Union of Britain has collapsed. Scotland and Wales, who are wanting independence, have risen up to fight England. All Haitians shall be elevated to a position of equality. The motto, God, Labor, Freedom, will be the motto of the Emperor's regime. This world's equivalent of the Second World War has started. The Reichspakt will clash with the Third Internationale, who is somewhat weaker thanks to the internal strife in Britain. We're going to invade Honduras, who is battling Guatemala, and they are also a member of the Liberal Pact, which consists of them, El Salvador, and Nicaragua. The Cap-Haitian Renaissance has begun. It bears a lot of similarities to the Harlem Renaissance in New York City. This movement is spreading among artists and poets, as well as people all across the African diaspora. We just gotta get Honduras to surrender to defeat the Liberal Pact. Let's hope Guatemala can stay alive, because we are going to be using them as a distraction. We're integrating the Jesuit schools. There are multiple parties with different opinions on this. We will side with the conservatives, who say the schools must be state-sponsored. We have landed in Honduras thanks to the aid of allied navies. We only got 11 divisions, so there's going to be a lot of careful maneuvering going on as we fight our enemies. Meanwhile, and not Haiti, our big ally, the German Empire, is winning on the Western Front, but losing on the Eastern one. We triumphed over the liberals. However, we're not done in Central America, because Guatemala, who had all the war score despite us doing all the heavy lifting, took everything but Honduras. We can't justify a war on the Guatemalans because our faction leader has a non-aggression pact with them, but we can justify one on Nicaragua, their puppet, and when we attack them, Guatemala will be obligated to face us. As I foresaw, the American Union state dominated the Second American Civil War, and now they are going to take out the Pacific states of America. Germany proposes to use a single currency. No thanks to that, because the German Empire may not exist very soon. Our war goal for Nicaragua is ready. Let's get it going. We're going to be fighting Guatemala, El Salvador, and Nicaragua. We just need to triumph over the first one I mentioned in order to have absolute victory. The Emperor of the Third Empire of Haiti speaks over the radio. He tells his citizens they are like the sand from which is built the sandcastle of the state. He then says while the sea may wash away the sand, it only makes the resolve of the builder stronger. Those who oppose the imperial revival are like a cathedral. They are beautiful, and what is within is glorious, but they are stagnant. Cathedrals do not stand forever. They are only temporary, and when they are destroyed, they are nearly impossible to repair quickly and cheaply. Guatemala, along with its puppets, has fallen. We now control a huge part of Central America. We have more than doubled the size of the Haitian nation. Haiti, which started off as a troubled and occupied nation, has become a regional power of the Caribbean, and I predict in the future at some point a pop history YouTube channel will make a video on Fallston Workus, as he has quite the interesting life story. The video is going to come to an end here. If you enjoyed the mod, check it out in the description below. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe. Leave a comment. Have an awesome day. I'll see y'all later. Bye.